A 10 putt.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Real History. I am your host, Jared Frederick, and once more we have another special guest related to our examinations of Masters of the Air, and for this episode I am joined by actor Liam Edwards, who is visiting us digitally all the way from London. So Liam, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
I think a really great place to start off is to ask you how you got interested in acting and what's your professional background?
Yeah, so my name's Liam. I'm 26 years of age, nearly 27 at the end of this month. I'm from Southeast London, 26 years of age. I recently graduated studying criminology at Oxford Brookes University, and before that I did an apprenticeship at the Football Association. Did an events apprenticeship in soccer. You guys call it soccer, we call it football over here. Did that for a year, but during all of that kind of academic work, my hobby and my passion is acting. It always has been, and it probably goes as far back to my late uncle Michael, who did a lot of supporting artist work. He was in the James Bond film Skyfall, getting famously pushed out the way by Daniel Craig in the tube scene. Growing up, I'd see him on Sherlock Holmes in the UK, EastEnders, which is a very British kind of TV soap drama here in the UK. So I always grew up watching that, and that's kind of how I fell into acting. And it's kind of a nice little learner for me while I was at university. They do a lot of filming in Oxford. Like I say, I'm originally from London as well. Kind of intertwined quite well with myself, and earned a bit of money on the side, which was quite nice.
Yes, indeed. Now, you come from a family where cinema is appreciated. So since we are a History versus Hollywood channel, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, what is your favorite historical film and why?
Ooh, historical film. I think for me, and it's not particularly a reason, just because he was my favorite, and still is my favorite actor to date, is Sir Michael Caine in Zulu. And it was just, I think for me, it was just the quality of acting, and actually how good the visual effects of that was for the time period it was filmed in. I think for me, I would say probably Zulu. And Michael Caine, he served in the military. He's a Cockney man. He's from East London. I'm from Southeast London, so I'm not full Cockney as he is, but close enough. So for me, he was kind of always a bit of an inspiration, very much from a working class background, and enjoyed many of the films that he's been in. So I would say probably Zulu.
Oh, that's a fantastic one. And many of our viewers have asked us to do a review of Zulu on this channel, and I promise that it is coming at some point down the road. I would have to say probably my first Michael Caine movie, historical or otherwise, was A Muppet Christmas Carol. But I digress. It's a very different movie. Let's get straight to the punch. How did you find out about Masters of the Air?
So there was a flyer that was sent out to a lot of us university students. I was also part of the Oxford University Royal Naval Unit in England when I was at uni, and they always used to try and cast a lot of officer cadets, or young people might have a bit of spare time on their hands. Coincidentally, I did 1917 as well, World War I.
Okay.
So it's just comb back the hair, grow a tash out, and I'm hired. But I did that as well. So I got the flyer for it, and I did extra work about 2 years prior to this, so I knew the industry fairly well. But it just said big World War II TV series, come get involved if you want to. And I didn't really put two and two together at the time. I didn't really know Masters of the Air was being made. I was a huge fan of Band of Brothers in the Pacific growing up. I didn't know this would be like the trilogy, the third one kind of in the Spielberg and Hanks remit. It was just kind of advertised on social media, and got the call, and it said it was going to be in Buckinghamshire and Aylesbury. Now, Aylesbury's kind of, we'll say Aylesbury, should I pronounce it correctly? It's kind of just outside of London, so it's kind of 45-minute drive from Oxford, where I was living at the time, and then from London it was about an hour's drive. So it was kind of right in the middle, which was quite nice for me. And it was kind of one of the first biggest TV series to happen during the COVID period. Very strict on COVID. You had to test twice before even going onto a set. So say if you had a fitting, for example, you had to go for your COVID test on the Tuesday, then wait for your results on the Wednesday, then go for another COVID test on the Thursday, and wait for your results on the Friday. So then start a fitting or filming on the Monday. So yeah, it was quite a stressful period. I don't drive. I still don't today. A typical Londoner doesn't need a car. But I had to get my friends to drive me around, and I had to pay them basically a cab fare. But it was like a 15-minute drive. It wasn't, 45 minutes. It was quite long in the car just to literally get a swab up your nose and then go back all the way to Oxford. But yeah, that's kind of how I heard about it at the beginning.
All right, and I think talking about your time working on 1917 might be a good prologue to all of this. Give us a brief insight on that and how it prepped you for playing another military role.
You know what? Working with Sam Mendes and Roger Deakins, the sets they built for 1917, the trenches on Bovingdon Airfield, which was another location they used for the POW camps in Masters of the Air, which you'll see later in the series. 1917 was actually the first film I did, and that was hard. That was 5 a.m. call times. I stayed in an Airbnb locally. You're in the wet, cold, muddy trenches, and all of us guys were struggling, let alone if you're actually in a real wartime situation being shot at and like all of that itself, but just how cold and wet and damp. And they really, it was take after take after take, really try and get you into how they would feel. And I think the cut, it was the final day, and it was like the 25th shot is what actually made it into the film, because we were really just drained, tired, and just wanted to go home. And I think that was what made the cut. And then obviously following on to that, I did Operation Mincemeat, which was the World War II film with Colin Firth. So yeah, I seem to get quite a lot of World War II, World War I pieces, and I'm not complaining because it's my favourite genre of film and TV and history in general. So that was mentally challenging, but I loved it. And you can see me in the cut smoking a cigarette.
That's great.
A cigarette.
All right, you'll have to give us a timestamp so we can incorporate that into the video. So you get word that you're going to be in this World War II series. Did you even know the title of it when you were accepted?
No, all we knew was it was Whirlwind was the code name for it. We knew it was Apple TV, but it wasn't really, even at the fitting, there wasn't there was kind of murmurs and rumors. Someone said Tom Hanks film Greyhound was a Greyhound spin-off was originally mentioned. Obviously, he made the first one. That was kind of mentioned, but then I was thinking, well, the kind of uniforms wouldn't really make sense for what we was getting fitted for. It wasn't very naval-esque. And then later on, when the actual filming begun, then we realised what it was. And when I stepped on to set for the first time, that's when I was like, wow, this isn't just a little small budget thing, And we'll talk about this probably later on in this talk, but when it gets reported that the budget for this was like $250 million to $300 million, let me just say this now: it was a lot more than that. I think Apple just put that figure out and just went with it. But I'll just say it was definitely over $500 million.
Wow. Wow, that is astounding. Well, it has very good production value and good special effects, so it shows, most definitely. But let's talk a little bit further about your first time on set. What was your initial impression? What did you see? What most impressed you in that initial moment?
Well, it was just the size of it, to be honest with you. I mean, once again, very strict COVID protocols. You'd arrive on set, you'd have your mask on, and then what they did with us, there was hundreds of us on set, they would put us into booths. So COVID was so strict, so you could look to your fellow peer next to you, but it was through like this kind of silicone kind of sheet, so you couldn't actually get to them. You could just talk to them. Kind of felt a bit like you was in prison at times. but it was just very strict, and it had to be, because when you got thousands of people in a production, one person gets COVID, then it can spread, and then it can halt production, and that's millions being wasted. And there was a couple of times that did happen during production, and then so I started off as the role of an intelligence officer. So I got to set like everybody else. Got dressed, got changed. The first day was a boot camp with Captain Dowdye, the man himself, talking to us about, what this is about, the period of it, what we actually be doing day to day. And obviously we're just supporting artists. So a lot of the time we're going to be in the background, making the scene better while, the main cast is doing dialogue or what have you. But wanted just to get a feel of what this period was. And it's when we went on to base, and it was in an area called Chalfont St Giles, very fancy name. It was at the Chiltern Open Air Museum. That's where the location was. They built the whole base and everything. I think the Daily Mail did an article, I think that we had loads of paparazzi taking pictures on drones, so you actually get a really good scope of how big it was. But it's just the level of detail, on the maps. They built a chapel, they actually built a full big chapel, and the hospital unit. And I was thinking, I've never, I've been on movie sets and TV sets before, but nothing like this. And obviously meeting Captain Dowdye, Vietnam vet, military advisor, such a history, to just to listen, just being his presence. Obviously I recognize him obviously from Band of Brothers. Good actor as well. Good. There seems to be a thing, doesn't there? If people have been in the military, it transcends into a not bad acting career.
I think it's because they have to wear many faces to please many people, I think.
Exactly. So that was kind of the initial kind of look at the set and just how big it was.
Yeah. What were your first interactions with Captain Dowdye? I mean, he's a rather legendary figure in the realm of military and historical movies. Was he loud and abrasive and in your face like first day of boot camp, or was it more conversational, given that this wasn't perhaps going to be as physical a film, let's say, as 1917?
I mean, it was very much a kind of conversation at the beginning, but it was when I got gifted the role to be the adjutant in the series. I had to audition against 5 other guys who, looked a little bit older than the rest. I think I must have, I'm 26 now, so I would have been, 22, 23 maybe when I was filming that, 21, 22 maybe. And they wanted someone who looked a bit older. And that's the thing that I always found very hard to believe. I think Tom Hanks said, if you were like 23 or 24 back then, you were called pups. You were kind of like the oldie kind of. And that's the thing I kind of found very surreal. And maybe I had a couple of grey hairs coming through as well. But they said, come for an audition, you and me and 4 other guys. And we had to shout a 10 hut as loud and as vigorous as we could, and had it filmed. And then it got sent to the department. And Kerry Fukunaga, who was directing the first few episodes alongside Captain Dowdye, had a look. And I got picked for the role of adjutant. And Captain Dowdye came up to me and he was like, son, if you mess this up, you're out. And I was like, yes, sir. I was like, I gotcha. I said, I'm going to do a good job. And I kind of thrive under that pressure. I want to give it a good job. And I always remember doing the first take for that. And I think I must have said a 10 hut about 100 million times. Take after take after take. And he was like, son, that was crap. We're going to do that again. And I was like, yes, we are. All right. He's like, okay. And then it's ready for the hut. You got to get it precise. I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I got it. A 10 hut. And it's just an incredible experience. Not just because someone who loves acting, but I think just what the series is and how much it will mean to people generations to come. This isn't just one of those one shows. Oh yeah, you talk about it and then it'll be gone in like the 10 years time. It'll be watched. Look at Band of Brothers. Still being watched 20 plus years on now. And I feel like Masters Air will be a similar show.
I would agree with that. So you get your part as the adjutant. I'm interested in some of the behind the scenes. This is a huge logistical process by any standards. What was a typical day on set like, especially for somebody like yourself who has some screen time?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always found it quite funny because I always, if you were cast, you could have craft. So craft was like you could get the luxury drinks and the sweets and everything. But if you was just an SA, you get the crappy cup of coffee. If you were lucky, just a biscuit. So I felt like Robin Hood. I was taking from the rich and giving to the poor when I would go get the lovely fruit sweets they had and the Coca-Colas and come sneak them in. And I always remember the security guard. He was like, "Are you cast? Are you cast?" I was like, "Yeah, I've got like a one-word bit of dialogue." You know, he's like, "Okay, let me just double check." Someone said, "Yeah, he is. He's like, he's got." I was mic'd up. I had my mic in my sock, and I had the wire run up, and I had everything to prove it. So for me, it was, yeah. I mean, the day would go. You would start at 5 in the morning. You had to be in early, and then breakfast, get changed. You'd all line up, hair, makeup. I had like a pencil thin tash. So I had to really get that right, which it's quite trendy. I look back on it now. I thought that's quite cool. I might bring it back. But yeah, and then you go to set. You get briefed about what the scene would be. In a lot of my scenes, I mean, I worked on Masters of the Air for over a month, and mainly those were briefing room scenes. Obviously, we had the intelligence room scene as well. The IOs, where the intelligent officers were present. You can kind of see me at the desk doing my, a bit of admin work. So yeah, that was kind of the day of it really, and yeah, a lot of it was just kind of sitting, waiting around, having to wait for actors. It is, it's quite a long, grueling business. I mean, the weather was pretty good when we was filming it, so it was never too bad. But I know guys who basically worked on it for 11 to 12 months, and they worked for all weathers. They used Abingdon Airfield as the main airstrip, and they said in the summertime those uniforms were very, very hot.
Yes.
They weren't particularly pleasant. And then obviously then we moved into winter and was filming the POW scenes in Bovingdon Airfield, and it was absolutely freezing. So some of those guys really did go through all temperatures. They would camp up overnight. So they were allowed to camp to save money on accommodation, because some of these guys were traveling from Manchester and Birmingham and Scotland. We had quite a few guys down from Scotland. So it was just a whirlwind, ironically, the production over time. And being in the presence of Callum Turner, like I was very lucky and fortunate to be at the BAFTA screening in London for the show, and I was also an extra in Boys in the Boat.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah, Callum Turner was like, says, "Liam, you seem to be in everything I'm in."
Well, it's wonderful to be on a first name basis with the stars of the feature.
Yeah, it was quite surreal.
So that's a great segue, given that you were in Boys in the Boat as well. Both are period pieces, of course. To what standards was authenticity sought in both of those films? I know when we look at a lot of the intelligence rooms and the huts and Masters of the Air, just immaculate details down to the paperwork. Can you possibly offer some contrast in these two period films that you were in? And
I think, John Orloff, who obviously wrote Masters, I know his son Jordan Orloff quite well. We became friends over social media, and I just know attention to detail was everything. I mean, especially in Aylesbury, where they had that's where all the planes were propped up. And he would always be there, and every attention to detail on the back of the seat that the pilot would be sitting on. He wants this correct. He wants this correct. Where obviously Boys in the Boat, directed by George Clooney, brilliant film, and I'm not just being biased because I was in that as well, but it was a really good film. But he was such a 9-to-5 director. Where on Masters of the Air, like the level to detail. I'm not saying Boys in the Boat. Of course, Boys in the Boat really was to a T, really good with the detail, in my opinion. But I think with Masters of the Air, it was just taken up a notch. And, when you're in the intelligence room, and it was just more the map layouts and the actual missions that I was watching. And to be fair, the dialogue that the actors had to learn. I think it was Jim Murray. He plays one of the senior officers. I think it was in the third episode. We had the mission briefing, and just to learn all the precision of the bombings, where they had to do it, and the coordinates. And I'm just standing there after my 50th take, and I'm like, God, that's a lot of dialogue to learn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we had lots of historical advisors on set. Obviously, having Dow Dyer's input as well. It's quite cool. I got to meet Sawyer Spielberg as well. Obviously, Steven Spielberg's son was in it. He's a really good actor on it as well. So yeah, I think the detail, I think on, like I said, on Masters, I think was a bit higher than Boys in the Boat. I think they really wanted to nail it. Like there was no room for error. But yeah, kind of two different films, but of the same kind of era, weren't they? Obviously around the Olympics.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful insight. When you were on set before Masters of the Air, was there a sense of weight, gravitas, obligation, whatever you want to call it? Would actors stay in character with their American accents? Would there be joking around? Would there be levity between takes, or was everybody kind of laser focused on the scenes at hand?
Well, as I said, I mentioned that I bumped into Callum Turner again. I said, Callum, it's the first time I've heard you in an English accent. Boys in the Boat kept the American accent. Masters of the Air kept with an American accent. I think I was the kind of only guy who just kept my London accent when I was around Barry Keoghan and Callum and Austin. And Austin did mimic my London accent very good. So if they ever make a Ronnie and Reggie Kray gangster film again, I think Austin might have a fair chance of getting in. But yeah, I think we all knew the responsibility of it. I think that was always very much drilled into us about the 100 Bomber Group and what they sacrificed. I mean, obviously you learn so much about World War II at school, but I never really knew about these guys and what they did. I think Callum Turner says it was like a 77% chance you wouldn't make it through the mission. I think correct me if I'm wrong on that. I think you'd either like end up dead or end up in a POW camp. These guys went up, and there's bravery and there's bravery, and you couldn't even imagine in this current climate, going up there and knowing your chances weren't great. But you could just see how it was depicted in the series. They were just focused on the mission. As much as all of that chaos is going around them, they're just focused in wanting to drop the precision on those sites. And even I learned about the Americans doing the bombing in the daytime, the Brits doing the bombing in the nighttime. I was kind of like, who's pulling the short straw on that? Like, that's just obviously the start. I would like to be quite interested to know the percentage of British that died at night, because we didn't. Obviously, it's an American show, so we didn't really get the British out like as much. But yeah, it's just you just really looked at the statistics, and when you was learning about it, it was
Well, you bring up a good point in discussing the American and British dynamics, because in the 1940s, there was a lot of culture shock between your countrymen and my own as they were getting along and becoming allies. Did you see any similar sort of culture shock playing out on set with this international cast and crew working together?
You know what? I think Brits and American in the modern day, I think we get along quite well. We have the special relationship now, don't we? I think there's a few people I think it was in episode 2, where the Brits were depicted in the pub scene, that are a bit, very stereotypical, stiff upper lip, I mean, I looked at those British guys and I thought they're arseholes, and no, I think it's a bit tongue in cheek, but obviously that kind of camaraderie and banter, probably what got it through, got them through a lot of the tricky times. We were in the pubs in Norfolk, looked after the locals, and we all had one mission and aim was to defeat Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. And but I can imagine there was a bit of kind of stereotypes in there between the Brits and Americans. I think that was probably very true in that time. But when we was on set, everyone just got along. It was really we called ourselves the Band of Brothers. I know it's cliche, but it was everyone just got along so well. We'd go out all the time. COVID restricted then, but we even had a supporting artist rap party.
Oh, that's great.
In Hertfordshire, yes, created by the extras on the show. So there's a few hundred people at that. So yeah,
it's always a wonderful thing.
yeah, just it's a magical time to be together and to be part of something this big. Yeah.
Did did they ever bring any of the surviving veterans to set to witness any of the proceedings?
Unfortunately, I never met any. So the rumor has it that there was meant to be a 10th episode for Masters of the Air, but the budget was really blown. Like it was at its limit. I think Apple have a lot of money to spend with. There was rumors that it was going to be Austin Butler at kind of flight school, but before all of what you see in the episodes out recently. But I think the 10th episode might be going back to speak with veterans and the ones that are still alive today, to be interviewed. Because obviously that was quite a nice touch with like Band of Brothers, that
Yeah.
you kind of got that beforehand. So that's a rumor. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I think the 10th episode might be on that. But yeah, I think a few of the other guys who I worked with, my other colleagues, did get to meet some of the guys, and yeah, I just think it makes it a bit more real, doesn't it? What you're actually filming. I think as much as we like to be entertained, and it's on a streaming service, but I think it's bigger than that. I think it's educational. It's remembering those brave people that fought for our freedoms
Yeah.
today.
And I'm sure that there was a lot of seriousness on set, given that there was a horrible global pandemic going on as you were making most of it. But perhaps there was also time for some reflection on fun things. Do any fun or comical anecdotes come to mind of your time on set?
You know what? It was so when you get a group of really good-looking guys. It was the cut back hair. Everyone was looking slick. We all felt it. Lots of egos around, and it was like everyone had the cigar, and everyone tried to fit the mold. I think it was just the simplicity of some of the days. To keep ourselves entertained, we would like play this paper cup game of just trying to keep this paper cup in the air. There'd be like 50 guys in there, and I think if you dropped it, you got your ear flicked. It was just little things that they probably would have done back then.
That's exactly what I thought.
And I think you felt so in the character. When I always remember when there was a sunset over the base at the Chiltern Open Air Museum where they built it, and I just thought, this is beautiful. Like, this is what they would have seen. You don't have your mobile phones because they take them away from you because of NDAs and so on. So you just had to talk to people and get to know people, and all walks of life. Lots of airline pilots who were actually furloughed during the pandemic. So a lot of redundancies were made by British Airways and EasyJet. So a lot of pilots actually, ironically, ended up on Masters of the Air. So that was quite intertwined quite well. But yeah, I think I remember one of the takes when I was supposed to say a 10 hut, I said a den hut, and that made everyone crack up and laugh as well. And I'll also remember it was absolutely chucking it down with rain once. It was a night shoot, and there's actually two things, but the gazebo that was keeping me, Austin Butler, and everyone covered, that it kind of collapsed on us. So when I flung the door open, it kind of like just fell into me. So I kind of flew back with the rest of the cast in this little gazebo, and lots of water fell on us. So that was quite funny. What else happened? There was just so the air raid shelter scene, which I think is in the second episode. Obviously incredible CGI, which they did with all the shooting, but we had to go to the bomb shelters, and we did that, I think, a good 35 to 40 times, and we were running. It was about 11:30 in the evening, and I remember on the final take, one of the other gentlemen just stayed there, and he had like 8 hot dogs. And we were like, where have you got these hot dogs from? You've not left. He said, I just spoke to someone and they gave me some. So we was eating hot dogs in the air raid shelter while Austin Butler and Callum were doing this really beautiful dialogue. So it's just weird, petty things like that, really. Yeah, there's so many.
And that's exactly something that would have happened during a real air raid. I think I can visualize an American lieutenant with 6 hot dogs in his lap. Like, I don't know how long this is gonna last. Here, do you want one? I can see something like that happening. So that is not inaccurate by any stretch of the imagination. Did you bring any souvenirs home? Any token or memento items?
I should have brought it down before I talk. I've got my little pin badge. So This I got from the Napoleon set.
Oh, okay.
So there's a story. This was my cup. I drink my tea from 1917 in.
Ah,
And then this is my little pin badge that I had on my jacket.
uh-huh. Well, those are great souvenirs from three different very well-known historical movies. What is the figure from Napoleon that you
It
have
was
there?
we did a village scene, and it didn't actually make the cut, though it might make the cut in the 4 hour full
Mm-hmm.
length film that Ridley Scott's releasing on Apple TV. But yeah, it was just on the side of a house in the village. And if I'm sneaky enough, I'll be like, okay, I'll take that film as my final date. And they burnt the whole barn, so
Ah,
it was meant to be.
uh-huh. So you saved it.
Got the
Well,
cup from 1917, and then the little pin badge from Masters of the Air.
that's great. What other historical films have you been in that we haven't mentioned already? You have quite the resume.
What have I done? Yeah, Operation Mincemeat. Obviously, that was an incredible piece of history to learn about with Colin Firth as the lead. In that was the British soldier. Napoleon, 1917. Boys in the Boat. Um, this is where I need to. I know I sound like I'm up myself, but I need to go on my IMDb just to have a look because it's one of those where you're like, what have I been in? I've been in the House of Dragons.
Okay.
So I wouldn't class that as historical, but I guess maybe in a
It's a period piece, I guess you could call it.
yeah. 6 AAA. I was a soldier in.
Ah, okay, yeah. Forthcoming Netflix film.
Yeah, Tyler Perry. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Kerry Washington is in that. Um,
So that's likewise a very different one. And I'm interested. Did the filmmakers approach the subject matter in different ways from what you observed?
yeah, I mean, it was kind of interesting learning about the 6 AAA because that was about the postal and obviously the black service women who obviously served in World War II. And it was to do with the postal get shortages and getting to the other soldiers. I mean, you can probably explain it a lot better than I could, but it was that was in Cambridge. That was at the Duxford Air Museum, which obviously they have a lot of historical kind of things going on there. So it's quite they had a lot of period planes and involved in that. So yeah, that was really awesome to be on. Tyler Perry's a very good director. Dean Norris, who was in Breaking Bad,
Hmm.
he's got a role in that as well.
Oh, great.
So yeah, I was one of the officers in that as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've kind of done lots of different pieces, but I really enjoy it. It's such great fun, and it's just quite nice to look back on and yeah.
Absolutely. Are there are there any other stories you might like to share from the set and your experiences on Masters of the Air?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I say, it was just a brilliant time. I remember, I mean, obviously how strict it was with COVID. We did have a week where it was the dancing hall scenes in the middle of summer, and all the guys and girls would come out and they would just be sweating, drenched. And I remember because I was the adjutant and I was featured, I didn't actually really need to be there, so that gave me a good excuse to go sunbathing outside my office because I had a little mini office as the adjutant. Um, and yeah, just got to chill out, meet great friends for life, meet great cast members like Anthony Boyle, Callum Turner, Austin Butler, and another quick mention about the scene where my boss was coughing up blood, and then obviously seeing an American voice being dubbed over me. So that was quite an interesting day. I was watching it back, and my friends was like, "Liam, I'm pretty sure I saw you, but I don't think it was you speaking." So that was quite interesting how they did that. It kind of blurred me out and put me back in focus after the dialogue. So just quirky little things like that. And yeah, obviously working with Carey, he obviously did No Time to Die, he
Hmm.
directed the James Bond film. Yeah, he was really cool on set, and yeah, Captain Dow Dyer keeping us all in check, and all the other military advisors who were ex-service men and women. Yeah, just giving their little 2 pence to help us, give us structure, get us marching in the morning, few press ups. a few sit-ups just to get us in the mood and the mentality. But it's such a wonderful thing to be part of, and yeah, to all the great people I met. Yeah, fantastic memories.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show to discuss your experiences, not only on Masters of the Air, but so many other historical films as well. We really got the most out of you on this episode of Real History. Thank you so much for joining us, Liam Edwards.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you to all of you for tuning in once again on Real History as we continue to explore Masters of the Air. We'll see you next time, and until that time, stay curious.